Hampton Roads has a long-running high school and college sports tradition. It's time to give them the spotlight they deserve. This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Here is Matt Hatfield.
And we welcome you back to 757 Sports Talk. Like, share, and subscribe, and interact with us on Cova Sports TV, wherever you are tuning in. We have a special guest with us. He hails from the 757 and is going to be back in his stomping grounds this weekend for the Virginia Duels. 20 teams from Hampton Roads and many, many, many more. The 62nd edition getting underway at the Hampton Colisum. He's a Hall of Fame sports writer, broadcaster, public address announcer, podcaster. He's done some Olympic work too. He's our pal from Poquoson, Jason Bryant. Jason, good to see you. Long time no chat. Thanks for popping on.
Yeah, it's a treat for me on Saturdays to see you and Ed out there, because back in the day, it was Richie on Saturdays. It was Mercurio on drive time, Castleberry in the morning. I mean, it was just the Richie and Dino show. So I'm glad to see that there is a tradition of sports talk still alive in Hampton Roads in the 757. And it's a guy who did a lot of things like I did growing up. You were going to the remotes with Tony. You were, sitting there just soaking up everything you could about sports broadcasting and sports in general. So, I remember, Matt, the first time I met you was at a remote, I believe it was like a wireless store right in the Kempsville area. Yeah. And I was like, who's this kid with the St. Louis Rams jersey? And that was my first interaction with Matthew Hatfield. And since then, from everything you're doing with Hatfield Sports, but it's a great way for me to stay connected with, I've been gone for 20 years. I left Virginia in 2005. I went to Pennsylvania, then I'm here in Minnesota, back to Colorado, now back here in Minnesota for the last 13 years. But the fact that I still keep up with the high school sports scene in Hampton Roads because of what you and Ed are, and it was Ed, when I saw Ed still, I was like, Ed in the mornings, it was such a throwback. And I get to share a little bit of home. I get to have a little bit of home with you guys on Saturday mornings when I listen. And again, the high school football school board show, which was like, a staple when I covered football, high school football for the Daily Press, and just being just we don't have that. I've lived all over the country, and there's nothing like the high school coverage in the Hampton Roads area when the papers were actually doing a better job. That industry is what it is now, but having worked on the other side of the water, and just the passion for high school sports in that area is something I've never seen anywhere else. So it's great to see this is Cova Sports TV, Matt, what you're doing with Ed. It just, again, it makes me feel good to know that no matter what, if I need information on what's going on in the high school football scene, or high school sports scene, I know where to go. And that's not a paid plug. That makes me happy as a sports fan.
We appreciate it. We'll make sure that people in the hospitality room, which I hear is awesome at the Duels, by the way, take care of you.
Best ever, by the way.
It's awesome. Yeah. My Virginia Preps Classic tries to give it a close second run for the money. But before we dig in on the wrestling, and we know Grassfield's doing great. There's an ODU alum coming back home, ODU baseball alum coming back home with his team this weekend. And you talked about, we both cut our teeth the same way growing up with, it was for you, I think, back then, score 13-10, the 94.1.
I've got a bumper sticker on a cup somewhere here. I've actually got a Peninsula Poseidons Mason-Dixon Football League championship, 1992 championship patch just off screen here in my speakeasy. I've got some vintage. I got an Admiral's pennant back there. I got some Virginia Squire stuff. I got, Virginia Roadsters. I was a PA announcer for them for a very short time, their inaugural season. So, yeah, when we go home, we talk about those things. It's just like,
Well, let me go there, because we both have an appreciation for the high school realm, be it football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, you name it, the local sports, Tides, Admirals, everything involved, college, and it all ties back to the 757. So for folks that are unfamiliar with Jason from Poquoson and how you become this nationwide phenomenon with wrestling and on the mic, tell us how you got into it and how you've gotten so entrenched in the sport of wrestling.
Well, it was a happy accident. Wrestling was a happy accident because I grew up in Newport News originally. I was in the Menchville area, and I was a sports fan. And I remember the first time I ever called 1310, 497-1310 on the south side. I think it's 826-1310 on the peninsula. And it was Jason from Newport News. I was in the 5th grade. I was 10 years old the first time I ever called in. I had this strange, affinity for teams that were like new. Like I remember Xavier got into the top 25 on Sports Center. I would miss the bus in the morning because I would watch Sports Center trying to get highlights of the Orlando Magic. and they were an expansion team. I like the logo. Who's this team? Xavier 24. And then I'm scanning the radio dials at night, falling asleep, trying to listen. And I could pick up 700 WLW out of Cincinnati. Pete Gillen was the coach of the Musketeers then. Got to be a real big fan of them. And of course, listening to that school in Norfolk, my alma mater, which I'm not really, I'm not gonna disparage your broadcast employer here on the show. But again, listen to a lot of those games. Had season tickets to men's and women's basketball, spent many a day at Scope in the field house. So I was a sports fan. We moved to Poquoson when I was in the 7th grade, still kept on. I was working in the press box at the Poseidons games as a volunteer with Andy Cohen, who was the PA announcer, the Fasella brothers, George and Ed, who I would later learn had quite a wrestling background. And I still see Ed from time to time because his son wrestled at Poquoson and Matthews and then wrestled Division I at Appalachian State. But getting into wrestling was, again, a happy accident because if you know high school sports in the area, you know that Poquoson's a wrestling town. They've done really well on the baseball field and the football field as of late. But in my era, the basketball team wasn't doing so hot. And I think when I moved there, they were over. And I think up until my senior year, there was a stretch there where 5 years they'd won 13 games. Then alum Todd Bowden took over the program, and they did pretty good. There in the late 90s moving on. But it's a proud sports city. Yes, it's a city. It has more than 10,000 people. When I left, it had one stoplight when I graduated in 1997, but still kept listening to Tony, still kept listening to John, Richie, and Dino. Actually, Corey Williams, the old coach at Cox High School, sent me a shot the other day. Him and Dino were out somewhere, and he's like, hey, it was like Dino actually sent it to me. I'm like, how do you – everybody knows Corey Williams. My sister runs into him at New Realm Brewing down in Virginia Beach. So – I still get all these tie-ins from back in actually before it was Score 1310, AM Sports Radio 1310, before it was ESPN, it was before it was the Score. Eagle 97 was the FM station at the time. Even that was right after 97 Star. For those of you over 40 know what I'm talking about. But I was the sports kid. I knew about it. Went to all the high school football games, and I was always interested in announcing and broadcasting. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So again, I was soaking up as much as I could. And we were fortunate to have a good sports talk station that was talking about local sports too. That was the key. The Tides, the old Tidewater Tides at the time, the Hampton Roads Admirals. There were just so many good stories that a budding sports fan like me, a kid that just loves sports, had access to see, Division I athletics, had access to, at the time, Division II with Hampton University and William and Mary up the road. So with their, in the CAA. So had a lot of chances to see those teams. And I just fell in love with sports. And I guess a stats mind. I was that nerd that, memorized all the Division I mascots when I was in the 9th grade with that big fat sports almanac and stuff like that. And, and then calling in the shows. And then when I was a high school sophomore, I knew Poquoson was a pretty good wrestling program. It's kind of hard to miss with all the banners that were hanging in the gym. And, there was just a passion for the sport. It's a sports crazed town. I went to a match on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night in 1995 as a sophomore in high school. My buddy Terry Daniels, who was one of these local sports townies, you still see him he still goes to the Admirals games and all the Poquoson sporting events. Picked me up. I didn't have a driver's license. I'm 15. I go to a match. We wrestled Deep Creek. 2 days later, he picks me up. We go to the Virginia Duels, and that is where the infatuation with wrestling began. And that next year, I was there working for the high school paper covering it. Then, my senior year in high school, I actually started up. I worked a part-time job at the Daily Press, snagging phones, and I was there helping do Agate. Mike Holtzclaw did a lot of the beat back then. Marty O'Brien, I've known since I was 9th grade. That guy has just been great to me over the years. All these guys that are covering the high school sports scene, I'm there, with the Agate. And then Matt Talk, my radio show started with Greg Martin and Henry Ayer back in 1997, which then 1997-98, my first year at ODU. In Whitehurst Hall right there, started Matt Talk Online off dial-up. And then, I started announcing too. I've been doing PA announcing. I did baseball as a freshman. By the time I was a senior in high school, I announced 8 sports. Had a short spell of an attempt to wrestle. It was not long. Got beat up quite a bit, and it's like, and then ultimately my senior year, the hours that the Daily Press picked up, that's where I wanted to be. My coach knew it too. So ultimately that's where, I was working nights at the Daily Press. had doing student radio at WODU with men's, women's basketball, announcing high school wrestling tournaments on the weekend. So it really I took everything I loved about sports and the opportunity to get reps on the microphone and stuff. They were there for wrestling. Ken Berger was the guy that announces the state tournament. He'll be announcing the Virginia Duels this weekend. This will be his last time on the mic there, as he's gonna be retiring from the microphone there. And he's been the voice of marathons and road races. He did the Olympics in 2012 in London. It's just that love affair with wrestling. It took all the things I liked about sports. Wrestling is a sport where you can't pass to a teammate. You can't blame it on the referee. You can't call timeout in the prime position. As a combat sport, it's like the purity of it. And that's kind of one of the things. It's a niche sport. If you like sports, wrestling has got, even though it's a weird sport, yeah, and it's not for everybody, but at the same point, it takes everything that's great about sports and it boils itself down to the most basic. Me versus you, better man or woman wins. It's that simple. So, looking at it that way, it was a really easy sport to be attracted to in terms of, what I wanted to do with broadcasting. And I never realized that's where my career was going to go. I thought honestly, I thought I'd be sitting where you were at that age. I thought I'd still be there. I thought I'd be working at then 13th. And I thought I'd be eventually on ESPN someday. That was where I thought I wanted to go. And then wrestling just kind of took me to a different career path, and it's shown me the world. So it's something that was not my initial intent to say. I never said, hey, yeah, I want to announce the Olympics in wrestling one day. And, that wasn't on my senior will and testament, so to speak.
Pretty fun journey, though. And you can follow him on the Twitter or the X, as they now call it, Jason M. Bryant, our guest here on 757 Sports Talk, as we get you set for everything happening with the 62nd edition of the Virginia Duels at the Hampton Colisum. Let's go there now, Jason, because it is wrestling time here. And we know in the 757, the tradition that Poquoson, your school, has the likes of Cox and Granby and Great Bridge and some others that had this tradition. Grassville right now is the top team. Who are some of the teams and athletes we should watch out for this coming weekend?
We got a really good field. And now the Virginia, I hate to correct you on air, but again, it's just one of these, we're the 45th Virginia Duels in 2026. So we started in 81. So looking at it from the field, we've got, as far as I say, we got 16 teams that finished so let's set the stage again. We have 4 tournaments on Friday and Saturday. We start 9 a.m. Friday, the small American College Division. So that's 16 teams, Division II, Division III, and the NCAA, which is clubs, or in this case, where the apprentice school competes, since they're in that weird realm of not D3, but they've got a no man's land of athletics in this group called the NCAA, National Collegiate Wrestling Association, fills that gap. We have them, we have Liberty, then we have 7 D2s, 7 D3s on the small college division. That's a pretty stout tournament. They want to get in there. 3 of those Division II teams are ranked in the top 15 in the country. On the high school side, though, that is always where the bread and butter is. That is where the next generation of talent is coming from. That is the craziness. No matter the level, we've got 3 high school divisions. We've got the Town Bank American Division, local sponsor there. We have the Cliff Keen American Division. That's a national sponsor. And then the locals, the Black and Blue Division, the Get 'em Services Black and Blue Division, Get 'em Services, which were, when I was at ODU, right across the street was Get 'em Termite and Pest Control. Charlie Church, big wrestling guy, literally catty cornered from my house was his business. So if you'd ever driven down 40 Deuce at ODU and you saw that then it was an old red brick building, Get 'em. Yep, Get 'em's been a wrestling company ever since. And Charlie's one of those guys that's been great. Not just to me personally, but to the sport of wrestling for decades. So, and it's just such a fitting sponsor. The Black and Blue Division, that is where you got a lot of the local teams there. It's an all Virginia field. That is sometimes will be the best tournament these kids ever wrestle in. Some of these teams, they'll have these kids, they'll never get to the state tournament. And this is the best atmosphere they have. You're huddled over the corner mats at the end they usually have the end of the Coliseum, those 2 mats, and you got the overhang. It gets loud. Every pin gets nuts. Every upset. Crazy things happen. So you got 3 16-team high school divisions. The out-of-state teams that are in the mix, they're in the 2 American high school divisions. We stopped calling it the national because we felt like it was almost preventing teams from wanting to come. It's like, oh, well, we're not good enough for the national division. Well, no, we'll come wrestle you. So we basically take 32 of those teams and we kind of split them up evenly into the 2 American divisions. So that's how we get a good field. Every team is guaranteed 4 matches. The format I implemented a couple years ago, I call it a progressive bracketing. It's not exactly what it's called, but I know for some reason, basically every team gets 4 matches. And instead of 8 teams going 0-2, Matt, you know this from sports, from bracketing tournament stuff, when you come out, you get 2 games, you're out. Well, we're going to get every team 4 matches. And if you win, you're going to wrestle somebody that wins. If you lose, you're going to wrestle somebody that loses. That way you wrestle out completely to a 15th, 16th place. So sadly, there are still going to be one team in every bracket that goes 0-4. But you want craziness, that 15th place match on Saturday afternoon, it is nuts because those kids, they haven't won a dual meet all weekend, but they're fighting at it. And that's the one thing I love about it is it's just such an atmosphere. It was the atmosphere that drew me into wrestling. So we've got some, of those 15 teams, 11 teams ranked in the state. Of course, you mentioned Grassfield, ranked number 1 in the state by VA Wrestling. Looking at that, we have 5 of the 6 Class state champions are back. We don't have the Class 4 team, but the Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, Class 5, and Class 6 state team champions from last year are in the field. And if you've been paying attention, I know, Matt, you already know this. This is the last year Grundy Senior High School will exist out in coal mining country in Buchanan County, as they said, Buchanan County. So Grundy will cease to exist. And as the rules state, the records don't follow a new school. They're consolidating the 3 high schools out there into what's going to be known as Southern Gap High School. So Grundy's 28 titles and counting. Oh, it's across their decades of dominance in Virginia. They're going to wrestle Poquoson in the first round. And you want to talk about an old AA rivalry. That Poquoson Grundy has been a thing since the early 80s. And it's kind of fitting that the last hurrah for Grundy Senior High School, as it's known, the program's not going to change. It's not going to be the Golden Wave. It's going to be Southern Gap. And I think we're going to get, as somebody who's from Poquoson and somebody who knows people from Grundy and has always had a great respect for that program. That's one thing. That first round match, you've got history right there, and it's right there. The Class 1 and Class 2 champs meeting, all that history, all those battles in Salem and at the old Hampton University Convocation Center up at JMU where they used to have the AA tournaments. It was just, there's so many stories between those 2 programs, and for them to meet first round, that right there is a story in itself.
I always equate their success in wrestling, Jason, to what Cox has done in field hockey or Hampton High in football. It's unbelievable and unparalleled in terms of a match with what they've accomplished. Now, you also told me, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff, your ODU baseball alum is bringing his team in from Utah. How about that? Yeah,
you got a couple outside of that, you've got a ton of ODU wrestling alumni coaching locally. I remember a couple years ago when that school in Norfolk still had a program. I interviewed for the old Monarch Madcast, one of the podcasts I had, there were 6 coaches in the Southeastern District that were ODU alums. That's just one district. And if you look across the state, they're everywhere. Now, Jeff Urey was a Pennsylvania high school state champion and arguably was the first or second best wrestler on campus. Him and Jeff Rusak. Jeff Rusak was my roommate at ODU. He was a nationally ranked wrestler. He was the number 5 seed at the 2002 NCAA championships up in Albany. Jeff was a 4-time national qualifier. Well, and Jeff, the other Jeff, was there playing baseball, was on Tony Guzzo's teams, and was a state champion. But he went to went to college to play baseball. Well, he, after his run through the minors, I know he played out here in St. Paul. He played in Fargo-Moorhead towards the end of his baseball career, but also had some time in Utah. I'm going to ask him about this, how he ended up back in Utah, because he had some rookie ball out there. But he's been coaching Corner Canyon High School. They were 3rd in the state last year in Utah. And Utah's a good wrestling state. That guy, Cale Sanderson, people may have heard about. He's actually on a Wheaties box right behind me.
Yep.
That guy, he's from Utah. Utah's got a great wrestling tradition. So Corner Canyon's coming out. Roy Dragon was a heavyweight at ODU. He's bringing his team from Ridge, New Jersey down. So you got a couple alumni there. But Jeff, that was an interesting one when we got the application come through. I'm like, I knew he was coaching wrestling. And then all of a sudden it comes in. I'm like, dude. So I've also reached out to Harry Minningham. I know he's in Germany right now, so I don't know if we're going to get.
No, Harry just got back.
He just got back. Hopefully,
he was in Germany. He just got back for one of our.
We can get some plug there for a couple of those alumni coming back because, that's just a cool thing about it. But yeah, Jeff's bringing his team back. We've got Lakeside, Arkansas. Well, first of all, first time we've ever had a team from Utah in 45 years, the Virginia Duels, and we got a team from Arkansas, really? Lakeside. They're the 5A state champions. They're coming in. First time we've ever had a team from Arkansas. That hasn't been an opportunity until 2007. The state didn't even have high school wrestling until 2007. Now they have multiple college programs. They have a Division I team. They were Little Rock. I announced there for 5 years when they were starting the program. They've got Division I wrestling in a state that didn't even have high school wrestling until 2007. They've got multiple. I mean, it's just the growth there. And so I'm excited for that, to have a team from Arkansas come in. one of college buddies, Jeff from Utah, coming in. And then, of course, you've got your Nazareths, which will come in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Coach Dave Kroll. They're the only team outside of Virginia. They'll be making their 30th appearance. So the Blue Eagles at District 11. District 11, let's put this in a Peninsula Hampton Road sports ring. The District 11 in wrestling to Pennsylvania is the 757 to football to Virginia. It is just, that's where the hammers are. That when you want to recruit top talent nationwide for wrestling, you're going to District 11, the Lehigh Valley. You're going Easton, Nazareth. We got two more teams from District 11 from Bethlehem, Freedom and Liberty. They're going to be here. So you get Pennsylvania teams, and it's like, the Eastern region back in the day when we had sanity with the VHSL divisions. The Eastern region was the cream of the crop in Virginia back when I was coming through. And, even in the AA, it was the Bay Rivers district. So that's what the Lehigh Valley and Nazareth and those teams also bring to the table. Western PA, McGuffey, that's just knocked down. Just the Whippeal. That's another hotbed of wrestling. The WPIAL is where, if it's not District 11, it's the Whippeal where you're getting your kids. So you're going to get a cross section, and New Jersey is always going to be tough.
Awesome. Just a wealth of information is he, Jason Bryant. Again, you can follow him on the X at Jason M. Bryant. Before we let you go, and I'm sure we'll get you back on here, we can talk all day with you about everything that you're entrenched with in wrestling. We'll do that. Tell the folks how they can find out more with the duels if they want to follow the updates throughout the event, post the event, and also if they want to hear some of your podcasts and material, be it outside even the duels and wrestling in general. How can they do so? What's the best way?
Yeah, I've been handling the website for, I don't even know, 20 some years on this thing. And it's something I volunteer for. It's again, a labor of love. It's the old club, the Peninsula Wrestling Association. And this is a fundraiser for the wrestling club. This is the event that helps pay to take the kids to trips in the off-season championships, to the national championships, from the kids levels all the way up through high school, the Peninsula Wrestling Association, USA Wrestling Sanction Club. So it's a fundraiser. Have a youth event on that Sunday. We've got a kids rookie tournament and stuff. But VirginiaDuels.com, that's where you can find everything as far as the schedule, the website, the brackets. The event will be streaming on Flow Sports. So if you're a fan of those niche sports, you've seen a lot of them there. If I was watching Flow Hockey this weekend for the team I announced, St. Cloud State. The hockey team there, they were playing out in a tournament. I was watching Flow Hockey there. So if you've got a Flow Sports subscription and any sport, you can watch it through their Flow Wrestling vertical. There, of course, is a fee involved there. You can get your tickets through Ticketmaster on the front, VirginiaDuels.com. On the socials, at Virginia Duels on Facebook, at Virginia Duels on X, at VA Duels on Instagram. I'll be doing a lot more of the Instagram this year. I've been messing around with some more social media things. I've got a gimbal, Matt. I don't know why, because I'm more of a podcast nerd now, but okay. I'm going to be doing some stuff with the phone, doing some quick interviews. Apparently, I will not, however, be doing that little microphone in the face thing. Man, I hate that. As a broadcaster, I hate, it's like, just clip it, man. I don't even know. The road brick doesn't even bother me anymore, but the tiny thing is like, I don't need to interview this. Like, I've got a big microphone here. Let's talk here. But I go on so many tangents, but yeah, VirginiaDuels.com is where you can find all the socials. My stuff is at MadTalkOnline.com. That is the Mad Talk Podcast Network. I have a daily wrestling newsletter that is at MadTalkOnline.com/news. If you're familiar with Substack, I use that. That is where you get all sorts of stuff in there. It's daily news from around the world. I curate it. If you're a wrestling person and you want to know everything about everything, that's where you can do that. But yeah, Matt, it's been short, sweet, to the point. But real quick, I also want to say there's 114 state place winners in this tournament. 114 just on the high school side. So you are going to see some high quality talent. You're going to see, and if you're lucky enough to be on one of these coaching staffs, you're going to get the best hospitality room in the country. And I'm not a small guy. I sit around 250 pounds. I have, in college, hospitality rooms was how I based my meals on ODU home into women's basketball games. So I know where good hospitality rooms are, and this is the best of the best of the best. And it's always been that way. So
listen, I'll tell you, there's a couple of administrators that had never been to the duels before told me after they went to it, they said it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. They weren't even diehard wrestling fans. They said, and to top it off, the hospitality room, they say they would go back just for that, not even the wrestling. So kudos to everybody over there and also yourself for making this such a unique event that people look forward to, put it on the calendar year after year after year. He is Jason Bryant. Thank you so much, my friend. We're going to get you back on when Ed's available to join us, when he's not teaching or practicing teaching or teaching practice, so he can talk to you.
No matter the sport, coaches never stay retired, even if they said they've retired 15 times. Ed's never going to retire, and he's never going to stop doing what he loves. That's what I love about Ed Young.
That's correct. Well, thank you so much, Jason Bryant. Give him a follow on the X and Twitter, all the things he does. You heard him mention the Substack as well, and everything with Virginia Duels. Again, virginiaduels.com is the website. Flow Sports, you can check it out and also see all the social pages from the X to the Facebook to the IG and so much more. Always a pleasure. Enjoy the wrestling, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate the time.
We've got more coming your way. It is 757 Sports Talk right here on Cova Sports TV. Make sure you like, you share, and you always subscribe and interact with us. Stay tuned.